I'm Jonn Howell. I work with Tactile Medical out of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Awesome. Well, I just saw you at Pause. Why did you come to Pause?
Why did I come to Pause? I've been going to developer conferences for 22 years or so in the FileMaker community, and I personally love to get out of the house and get involved with my colleagues and friends, and this is, the first excuse was this is the only option available right now, but I have been to Pause twice before, and I've been touched so deeply by it because it's been such a wonderful experience that I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world. It's for me, it's actually better than anything else that's going on.
What makes it special, or what makes it unique?
Well, I kind of want to share from a different perspective than I'm expecting other people might say. Is there's a certain magic that's come together, right? My personal background is I like to go on personal retreats. I spend time at monasteries and silent retreats and men's retreats. And when I go on a vacation, I always go to do something a little different for self-discovery, because I think self-discovery is more important than even acceptance, to know what you are and what you're made out of. So when I come to this, there's a certain combination of things that you've all been able to put together that doesn't happen in any other type of gathering I've ever seen. And what I've seen from it is there's three particular qualities that make an event good. One's going to be the location of the facility, where it is and what it can support. Another's going to be the organizers and what they set up, what their intention is, how they put it together. And the third thing is going to be the mind and the heart of the people that show up, what their expectations are, what their own willingness is in participation, and what they're prepared to bring. And this, especially this year, you and Chrissy, Martha, you and Chrissy, and all the people behind the scenes, including Todd Geis and Ernest Coe, and I know Matt Navarre and John Sindler, and I don't know how many other people are in the background. We're able to organize something in such a way that you feel supported, you feel encouraged. You've developed this over time, over another years, right? Because the first Pause I went to was back in 2010 in Portland. That it has a certain specialness about it. It's always an alternative type of location. In this case, this summer camp in the middle of Georgia that's remote. So you know you're going somewhere magical and different, unlike anywhere you've been, and you have to effort to get there. So there's kind of a threshold experience of like, I've got to get there and then I've got to get back. And when I'm there, I want it to be special. You're able to create the mood of the place in a way that it encourage spontaneity. People go there, we don't know what to expect, we don't know what to plan for. We're thrown out of our normal type of mode of doing things, and everything felt like spontaneous for us every moment. So we felt safe because we know all of you, right? And we've got a background in the community, but it wasn't like a normal convention. It's a special atmosphere where people are going to explore who they are, what they are, how they fit in the community, and just feel it out. And there's something about this facility that is wondrously glorious. The people there who run this place are so open and sharing. I went in the kitchen several times. I just had conversations with the cooks, and I got to know them. One's John Paul, who's been mistaken for the Pope. He goes by JP. And this young man named Cooper. I just said, hey, can I talk to you while you're observing the buffet? He said, no problem. And we had a conversation that became rich, just a rich conversation. Every night you put me up in this wonderful room. Every year it's different, right? But I was up in the visitor center, the welcome center. So I would walk through the tennis courts at night in the dark every night. And I kept passing this guy with this African accent, carrying a thing of food late at night, like every night he would stop and say, how are you? How was your day? I'm like, I don't even know this guy. What is this? And he just had this sense of openness and kindness and warmth to him that would just light me up every night. And these are the type of conversations I was having. So at every angle, there's something spontaneous. People are trying to do things a little bit different. And between the facility and your guys' wonderful planning and spontaneous celebrations and constant welcomeness of everybody, it allowed people to bring from their heart something I don't think we get to do normally at different types of events. So people became really open-hearted fast. A brief conversation turned into rich conversation. And I had like dozens of conversations like that. So there's something magical about it I wouldn't trade for the world. I've already made big plans for next year. We're going to fly,
That's
a bunch
awesome.
of us going to fly into Nashville and drive together instead of flying into Atlanta. And we figure it's about the same amount of driving time
That's awesome.
and explore Tennessee.
That'll be fun. You mentioned a little bit about this venue, and for us, it was important. They were extremely caring, and they cared for us, and that's what we try to do as the Christy and I try to really focus on that when we're putting this event together. How do we care for people?
Yeah.
But the third thing you said is the third piece is the importance of the people who go to Pause. So, and
Yeah.
you said they were open hearted. What did they bring? What kind of energy did they bring?
Oh, that's a good question. As an example, I know that I brought a certain amount of self-doubt and social anxiety, which I carry normally. And what I did right off the bat was I wanted to get past that, so I shared it with other people. And other people looked at me like, dude, I have the same thing. I'm like worried, how am I going to get along with, who's going to like me, who's not, am I smart enough, am I good enough, and all that stuff. And just by bringing that willingness to talk about it, they brought theirs, and they brought the openness to discuss. What I noticed at first when we got there was our self-doubt. And it was like laid on the table. People came there, at first I saw a couple guys in my hotel room, and they had kind of a mean look, kind of stern look. I'm like, well, I'm never going to get close to that guy. He looks difficult. So I walk right up to him. Hey, I'm John. What's your name? And then all of a sudden, a big old smile on their face because somebody was receiving them. Like, what people really wanted was they had my sense, a lot of people had a hunger just to be accepted as they are as a human being. And they're willing to peel off the layers really quick when they felt safe. It was like a desire to feel safe and received and heard and seen. I told myself when I go there, this is what you're going to do, John, 3 things. You're going to ask questions, you're going to shut up, and you're going to listen. And I tried to do that as much as I could, and it really seemed to work. And other people were doing the same thing. I thought I came there alone with that, but it turns out people are like, I want to explore something new, maybe learn a few skills, but I want to build some friendships and relationships and get a sense of where I stand in the community. And what I really want underneath it, I discovered, is because I work pretty hard. I work for a great company with wonderful people, but our heads are down into programming all day long, right? And we want to get out of that mindset and have something that's going to build us back up, to feel revitalized, recharged, enthusiastic. When I came back, I was absolutely excited to go back to work because I realized, God, I work with people I love. I love the work I do, and I'm surrounded by a community that I feel one with. I no longer feel at all like an outsider, some kind of special case who doesn't fit. I'm like, I'm just one with everybody else. And my sense is that's what everybody wanted, to feel part of, to be revitalized and recharged with something special that was out of their norm, get shaken up, and feel valued as a human being in a community that we adore being part of. And that's what you pulled off. That is the magic that you're able to put together, that we all contributed to. So the magic, I give a lot of credit to you and Chrissy, absolutely, right? And the people behind the scene and the facility, but also credit to the people showing up with their vulnerability and all their judgments or their politics or their self-doubt or whatever it might be, putting it on the table and realizing, I want to be more than that. Mm-hmm. And here's a place where I can release that and celebrate life together.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It doesn't matter what we had organized, without everyone's participation, it would have never worked. That's exactly where the magic really is. That's where it comes together.
It's all of it together.
Yeah. So what more did you bring? What was your contribution to Pause this year?
Well, a lot of it was listening and asking good questions. But Mike Ross had stepped up because he had such success last year talking about why we do abstraction. So he wanted to have a session called Perfect is the Enemy of the Good, which we've now renamed to Pause on Perfection.
I love it.
Right? And then about a month before, he reached out to me because we're old friends. He goes, hey, you want to co-host this? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever you want. And I feel like I mostly supported him, but we met in the big library, which had this big Hebrew environment. I kind of felt like we were in the Holy of the Holies. There's this altar behind us, so the room felt really special. We had 30 or 32 people show up, and Mike had his notes. We had rehearsed it, but I didn't use notes, and I kicked in. What I brought was a little my own personal vulnerability, and so did he, to open up about psychology and perfectionism and what drives it. So when we really looked behind the scenes of what perfection's about, I was able, with Mike, together to bring the mood so that people were willing to open and share and discuss stuff on a very personal level about how they think, how they function, what they deal with at home, their challenges at work, at focusing, or whatever it might be. And out of the 30 or 32 people, at least 20 people chimed in and engaged in a conversation with us the last almost 2 hours. So I think the best thing I brought was to contribute to Mike to make that session really wondrous. We left there feeling so much joy.
That's wonderful. What about outside of sessions? What did you bring outside of sessions?
Mark Baum held a folk storytelling session in the treehouse, this big round thing up in a tree, and we had maybe 20 people there. And Mark went around and asked for volunteers. He looked at me and goes, "How about you, John? You got a story?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'll dredge something up." So when it got to be my turn, I followed somebody else who had talked about Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I had a story that was way too personal to broadcast publicly, but I told the story of my own journey in my teenage years. Tie it back to meeting Colonel Sanders in San Francisco on the wharf, and that was fun. So I was able to contribute to that event. For me, it was a lot of these conversations on the side that just happened spontaneously, and running into people that normally you wouldn't have conversations with, but here you did. And just showing up. For me, it was just showing up for the conversations that arose and all the events, and kicking in. Like the whole thing of like singing along at a campfire scares the bejesus out of me, right? So what did I do? I went to the campfire and sung with everybody else, a couple sing-along songs, and took some pictures, and push past those limits. And when you do it among other people, they see you, and then they start pushing past it. So I was encouraging others to just show up and be spontaneous, being playful.
That last word is important, playful. I think that we as organizers, I think we said that a few times out loud. Did you feel that energy? Like spontaneity is part of that, but did you feel a playfulness that everyone shared?
I did. Yeah. Somebody was riding one of those things with a wheel on it, with electric wheel around the place. And I'm like, I'm not getting on that, but I'll watch. There were different sessions I would come to and just participate in, or just jump into a meal. Like we had all these wonderful meals at the dining hall, and there's some people I don't know. I'm just going to jump in and grab a chair and crack a few jokes and have conversation. Yeah, there was a lot of play. I wish we could just jump in the lake and go swimming, but that wasn't going to happen.
Maybe a future year we can do that.
Oh yeah, some of us afterward, because somebody had brought some whiskey they had bought at some distillery, and I had a team of 4 people. I go, "Hey, you guys don't mind taking a little detour?" When we left, and I got a spontaneous tour of a distillery in the deep south, and bought some whiskey, and that was really fun.
That's awesome.
A lot of things like that. Spontaneity of different events.
Very cool. Were there any specific sessions or conversations that really stood out to you?
If I didn't mention, Jason Young gave a session on integrating with Google Calendar, but for me, it was really all about approaching APIs, because I've always been a bit intimidated by the API and JavaScript stuff. I'm a traditional FileMaker and WebDirect guy, right? And everything that directly is related to that. And there was always a little sense of intimidation, but when Jason gave that session, and had quite a turnout, I think it was like 50 people, he presented it in such a way that made it totally approachable. And that was closer to the end of the week when I already was feeling really built up by other people. So as I watched it, I'm like, hell, I can do this. I'm just as smart as the average bear. And this is not intimidating at all. He made it very approachable, not just for the Google thing, but APIs in general. Like, I can learn this, I can conquer this. He helped me turn a corner in personal self-confidence of not being intimidated by new things that I don't know. That was the best for me. Heather McHugh gave a nice session on the back, on the cement stairs, we call that
at the amphitheater?
At the amphitheater, on interface design that went on for a while. And instead of having PowerPoint, she had the old flip the page white thing on an easel, which was really smart. And she had a lot of fun graphics. And it was a really nice, well-balanced overview of UI UX. A lot of people were there. And I think even though we may know parts of it, she put it together as a package that was really, really rewarding, able to like encompass the whole thing. And it was quite thorough. She had quite a number of slides there, equivalent to slides. So those were the two, along with the Treehouse session and our session, I think most of what I attended. I jumped in and out of a few of them because again, my focus was to build relationships and try to meet and have conversations with those people that I've never quite been able to get around the corner with, and I did. Yeah.
So it sounds like you had a chance to meet and talk with a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Good.
Probably 80 out of the 110 I had conversations. And I'm talking about meaningful conversations.
That's so good.
And the thank yous that went back and forth between us, the sense of acknowledging each other as solid contributions, solid human beings was really clear. I didn't feel any animosity or any withholds. People were really open. In fact, this may sound a little woo, I don't know, but like, I just want to tell this story. When I was like 35, it was a while ago, I was in Colorado, in Aspen, Colorado, with a ski group in the fall before it was snowy, and we're camping out, went for a hike in the woods, and somebody showed me an aspen tree grove and explained to me how all these aspen trees look like they're all independent and they all have their width and height and dimensions and different qualities, but they're all tied together in a common root. It's almost like they're one giant tree growing out of a common root. And I thought about that on the way back on the airplane. I go, that's exactly what pause was like for me. It's like, we're individuals with different genders and lifestyles and ages and preferences and whatever in diversity, and nobody cared. Nobody cared that this person was a little different than me. We celebrated the diversity, but we realized that we all are tied to a common root of this software technology, the day we're in, Claris, and that we share this commonality that creates an atmosphere where it's easy to relate and bond to people because we have a lot in common. And I really felt this sense that we're all really tied together with a common root, which was, kind of somewhere between a human and a spiritual experience of feeling whole and complete and happy and joyous just to be part of this. I'll tell you, the overwhelming feeling I got out of the whole thing was, and I'll be quite candid, when I look back at it, the joy I experienced last week was probably I probably had more joy last week than I've ever had in a week in my life. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, there's not even a comparison. So joyful because of the magic and what everybody brought, starting with you folks all the way down to every participant and everybody who worked there. It was magical.
I've been telling stories about pause this week, and I always start with my experience is different because I helped plan it, right? And so my view is a little bit different. I'm on the stage versus, at those opening sessions versus sitting in the crowd. But it never felt that way. It always felt like I was part of it and that I felt the joy and I felt the love going around at all times. Everyone was appreciative and everyone was so thankful to be there. And you could, it's almost like everyone's armor went down at least one notch, if not many more. And you could hear it in the room. And so I really enjoyed that from my planning perspective.
I could see that in you. I've got several pictures of, and you and Chrissy, like your head on Chrissy's shoulder, and you're just like, oh, this is so good. This all worked out so well. Like I didn't see stress. I didn't see any worry. Like you both looked like you were experiencing a lot of joy and contentment and satisfaction that it came together.
We really were.
And while we'll give you a tremendous amount of credit for putting this together, because the two of you make great CEOs of this thing, you do it in a way that, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but you make it look so easy and so effortless and so joyful that no one was picking up on any stress. No one that I saw was getting stressed out.
That's great.
This is sweet.
Yeah. You know what? Working with Chrissy is extremely special on its own. The whole process leading up to the actual event is really special too. And so getting to share that in the product of what we create or like what we bring to it is
right.
It feels it's just a different level of it's just an extension of what we've done for months of planning. So it doesn't feel stressful when we do it. It really doesn't. It might feel, there might be a little bit of anxiety behind it, because there's this dream of success, but
sure.
Really we just want to release something fun to the world.
I know putting things together, there's a lot of work and there's some stress getting to it, but but it came together. And, people jumped in, right? Well, you need help. And we're like, where can we help? My whole car, everybody in my car, because Heather and Danielle were with us, and they're both working with you guys, right?
Yeah,
And
they're both
and they had
guys.
volunteered, saw Mike. I go, dude, it can't be all women at the front counter. You and I got to jump in and do this too. So all four of us volunteered. And that was really fun to be at the front desk and be the welcoming face of it. I'm like, oh, I don't own any of this. What am I doing here? But it was really fun just to be so spontaneous and jump in. And everybody wanted to help, not take.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, I remember that from last year last year Chrissy and I did it. And it was like everyone was like a hi, a hug, and then what can I do? And so it was,
right?
I think kindly of people, and I assume that people do want to help, but to hear it and to feel it that whole time was just, it was special. And so watching it, Chrissy and I were walking around, and we watched people come to the Welcome Center and watched people get greeted, and it was such a warm feeling, even from, if I wasn't part of the interaction, I could still feel the warmth coming from people.
I think absolutely that was there. If a person shows up to this and thinks about it before they come, about what can I gain from this in the sense of discovering myself, or what can I discover about life that I'm not aware of? What can I discover about other people and how to interact? If you go there open to that, with your heart open, and this place, because of the magical environment you're able to put together, if you pay attention to that, then I suppose there's other people that had the experience I had, where I discovered dimensions to my own personality, the skills that I had in conversation that I never would have imagined I had. I'm like, I have to take those with me after here and practice them in a different environment that may not feel so safe or so sacred or whatever. But
Sure.
This is a place to discover more of who I am and how well I can interact with people in a meaningful way that helps bring other people out. I bet you a number of people probably discovered that. I can take what I've learned about myself from this experience and employ it in life the rest of the year. But I better come back because I'm going to need that recharge.
There you go. Exactly. What would be your advice for future attendees of Pause?
Think about what you really want in your heart of hearts that you're not experiencing right now, that you might discover in an atmosphere if it felt safe and your heart was open and you're interacting with other brilliant, beautiful people who are also bringing that, and you'll see that the magic of self-discovery is available there. That's what I would recommend. Consider, what am I missing? What would make me more rounded? Because it just came to me without effort, just being in that headset, in that mindset.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Any last thoughts? Anything else you want to mention or talk about?
I want to thank everybody who went. It was really fulfilling. Obviously, I can't say enough about you and Chrissy, your leadership, and then the other guys behind the scene who I did thank. And the wonderful facility. I'm so glad you're holding it at the same place again next year, because that's a special place, man. I'm glad we have that secured. But I want to thank every single person who was involved in this in any way for just bringing your A game. And if you didn't go. I have friends who are a little on the fence about going, and I have spent hours since I've been back talking to them about my experience on a very personal level. And they're like, okay, I get it. I'm going with you. So if you have been on the fence for any reason, whatever, one friend I go, he's got some politics and some COVID stuff. He's worried about that. And I go, look, bring it. Bring your resentments, bring your judgments, bring your fears, bring your doubts. But show up. Just show up. Don't set it aside. Bring everything that's on your mind with you, but bring it open-hearted to see if you can push past it. And you can. This is an opportunity that, in its own way, is as good as any, and I've done a lot of retreat work. This is as good as any other retreat I've ever been to, because it's a special crowd of people. And everybody's brilliant at these things, right, Martha? This is an incredible community. And in that brilliance, there's a lot of real humanity that I didn't even know was there, that you can uncover at this event. So bring it.
Yeah,
Show
that's
up.
awesome. Ah, it's such good advice. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. You are a huge part of the community. You are a huge part of Pause. I remember talking with you last year and getting to see you do your thing this year and bring crowds together and talk with different groups. So I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you were there, and I'm so glad you're planning to be there next year because I think it wouldn't be the
Absolutely.
same without you. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. But thank you for doing this.